handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality in general.
How in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everybody. 46 after the hour, and I've got to talk about this no indictment in the case of Eric Garner in New York, the latest unarmed black man to be killed by police and have a grand jury not indict for anything. Not murder, not manslaughter, not involuntary, not accidental, no nothing. You got a situation here where Eric Garner is seen on videotape being choked to death by the cops, where the coroner reports it as a homicide. And there's no charges against anyone except the guy who filmed it. Have you heard this? Yeah, no indictment for the cop who chokeholded this guy. And by the way, a chokehold is a banned procedure in the New York Police Department. Used a banned procedure to choke a guy to death, no charges, on video. But the guy who videoed it, he was indicted and charged with a crime. Not at the time, but about a month later. The police claim that he had a gun and that he gave it to someone else before the cops were able to get to him. And he was indicted for that. And the cops that were busting this guy told them, or the guy said, you're just going after, I don't have none, you guys are going after me because I caught you, because I videotaped you killing Garner. And one of the cops, while busting the guy, said, yeah, karma's a real bitch, isn't it? That's the kind of police state we are living in right now. And I really, really wish the people in my Facebook feed, my Twitter feed, and just people in general, especially white folks like me, would just finally admit that we live in a racist country. I know, I'm your stereotypical cisgender, married, straight, white, middle-class, middle-aged, middleweight male. I'm as white privilege as it comes. I'm as lily white as you can be in this country. But I have some understanding of what's going on here. I've got black family. I've got black nieces and nephews. I don't want my black nephew having to grow up and become a teenager and have his mom worry every time he leaves the house whether or not cops are going to kill him. My mom never had to worry about that. Me and my friends, my white friends in Nampa, Idaho, when we used to go out, mom and dad would be like, hey, see you later. Be home by sunrise. No worries about the crazy crap we were going to get into or whether we get killed for it. I grew up in a largely Hispanic, mostly Mexican immigrant neighborhood. Went to school, most all my friends, first-generation Americans. The only fist fight I ever got into in grade school was over racism. Was over a white bully picking on my Mexican friend, calling him a spick. Only fight I've ever been in. Only time I've ever laid, well, that's not true. The only time I wanted to lay hands on someone with the intent of violence. I wrote for a gay and lesbian blog. I was accredited at the 2008 Democratic National Convention to write on gay issues. That's right, Mr. Married Straight White Guy writing on gay issues. I've got friends who are disabled and had to deal with all of the things, had to see all the things that they have to deal with. So I'm not trying to claim, yeah, I've got gay friends, I've got black friends, so like I know everything or anything. I'm just trying to say that maybe I know more than some. And to add to all that, I'm a pot-smoking atheist. In fact, atheist is one of the few labels you can put on yourself that is going to get you more revulsion than almost any other label in this country. As far as like, would you vote for, would you be comfortable living next to, would you let your daughter marry a... So I guess the point that I want to get to is that too many of us in this country want to misdirect, redirect, and try to make this about anything other than race. I see people that post a link to the white kid that was shot in Salt Lake by the cops. Or there was a case in, I forget which state it was that popped up, where the black cop shot the white kid and he was not indicted. And nobody freaked out about that. Whenever these issues of race come up, sometimes it's just so uncomfortable for some people that they will go to any lengths to find any correlation, any tangent they can to say, well, no, it's not race. It's really about class. It's really about class. Really? You think it's about class? Talk to Henry Louis Gates. You know who he is? He is a black professor at Harvard who got the cops called on him because he was in his own house. Doesn't happen to the white professors at Harvard very often. Yes, class has something to do with it. If you're a toothless meth hillbilly in Kentucky, you might not get treated the best by cops either. But that's only a shell of what's going on over the core. And the core is that this country is racist at its core. Have you ever heard of the saying that the fruit of the poison tree? You hear this in the law a lot. Like if the cops do an illegal search, they can't then use the evidence from that illegal search because the evidence is the fruit of the poison tree, right? You already messed up by doing the illegal search. You can't use anything from that point on because it's illegal as well. It's the results of something illegal. Well, the fruit of the poison tree in America is what we're experiencing right now. We're a country that was built on the idea of slavery, that in our entire economy, our entire existence would not be without slavery. And through the 1800s, when most of the rest of the nations of the world were banning slavery, Britain did it decades before we did, we held on to it. We held on to it because our entire country was put together on a compromise. That's what it was called, the 3/5 compromise. The northern states knew that the southern states, the northern colonies knew that the southern colonies wouldn't go along in any sort of united front against the British Empire unless slavery was part of the deal, unless those southern states could continue their slavery. And to be fair, the northern states couldn't have gotten by without the slavery that was producing all of the industry in the South either. So our entire country is built on this compromise to allow the slavery and subjugation of an entire race of people. And some folks don't believe that still affects us. They like to think racism's a long ago thing. Oh, slavery's over. Well, yeah, what about Reconstruction era and lynchings? Yeah, but that was after the Civil War. Well, yeah, what about the Jim Crow laws and the different water fountains and the different schools? Yeah, but that ended in the 1950s. Well, what about the civil rights battles and the struggles to get the Civil Rights Act passed? Well, yeah, but that was in the 1960s. Folks, the racism in this country did not end with Martin Luther King, and it did not end with the election of Barack Obama. The more you dig into this, the more you learn about the pernicious systemic racism in this country. Things like redlining. Do you know what redlining is? Redlining is when neighborhoods were divvied up. The real estate was divvied up into certain areas where black people could and could not get loans. Even black veterans from World War II or Vietnam, whatever, could not get loans for homes in certain areas, white areas. Concentrating all these people into poorer neighborhoods with less services, with less policing, with less fire protection and so forth. And then we're surprised when these neighborhoods without much supervision or control or help or investment then became these urban inner city wastelands that they lament. And then the very people who brought those kind of tactics into play will point to the dysfunction in the inner city and blame it on the Democrats. They'll blame it on the liberals. Oh, see, the Democrats, everybody they vote for here is Democrat, and how awful their city is. See how bad Democrats are, without giving any lip service to the entire system that was built before that made the outcomes pretty much inevitable in those areas. Racism is not some long ago forgotten chapter of American history. There are black men alive today whose fathers were in the Tuskegee experiments. We experimented on black men from the 1930s through the 1970s by giving them syphilis on purpose and only treating half of them just to see what would happen to the other half. That stopped in the 70s, people. And then there's that special flavor of idiot who'll raise his head and complain about reverse racism. Oh, it's reverse racism now. Yeah, sure. Anybody out there complaining about reverse racism should be allowed to become black. By God, if it's so good for black people, you ought to be allowed to be black. That's what I think the people complaining about this reverse racism should feature. This is so systemic in our United States policy. From the people who were able to buy homes, white folks, who could then build that equity into personal wealth, build that personal wealth into businesses, and build those businesses into empires. But black folks, on the other hand, for generation after generation, who were promised 40 acres and a mule following emancipation, they were redlined out of neighborhoods, they were denied the same kind of loans, and they were treated differently in employment and hiring to never be able to build up that personal wealth and those personal businesses and empires to the same extent. You know, there was an interesting series of studies that I've taken a look at over this past week. One of them showed that when they took a resume, identical resumes, the same schools, the same experience down the line, and sent them out to thousands of recruiters and thousands of employers, but on half the resumes they'd put a white name like Brendan or Chad, and on the other half of the resumes they'd put a black name like Jamal or DeAndre. Guess which resumes got 50% more callbacks? Brendan and Chad. When you're working against a system that's already stacked against you, it's hard not to see the system is racist. Another study showed random sets of people, both white and black people, two different pictures. One picture, two white men, one with a knife. Another picture, a white man and a black man, one with a knife. Both white and black people misidentified the second set of pictures and more inaccurately placed the knife in the black man's hand when it wasn't there than they did in inaccurately determining which of the two white men held the knife. Even black people were more likely to figure that the black person was the criminal in the picture, even when they weren't. We'll talk more about this in hour 2. For everyone here at 420 Radio, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.